So when you're ready, you tell me, and then I can just put it through.
I'm ready.
You sure? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Yema Bibia Aquaba Eba City Media TV. So me a mete ye frame me Diva Nova Blue. And nay and topic I beka ho asem prenuptial agreement and I say cohabitation agreement. Sene de bia ye no ye beka ni chi am go bia ate ase afi ya kan brofo ama ye listeners and ye viewers a omonte brofo no so ate ase. And inti yes mrepi no ye be welcome ye lawyer kese lawyer Thomas Akwaba.
Yeah, thank you.
Inti lawyer say obi ka say prenuptial agreement na all parties say.
Okay, thank you very much. Listeners or viewers, I'm very happy that we are here today once again to discuss this topical area of law for the benefit of those of you who are watching us and who do not understand the Twi language. I'll start the introduction of this topic in English, and eventually we'll speak a lot of Twi as we do always. Now, as the host has already mentioned, we are going to be discussing prenuptial agreement and cohabitation agreement. These are two distinct agreements that are connected to relationships. Now, the reason why they are quite distinct and unique is that most of these agreements are not enshrined in law per se, but the court has discretion to place weight on it if it is entered into validly. And it's for this reason that we have decided to come and discuss this today. And it's also because of the fact that we just don't come here. We come here based on issues that we've been receiving or complaints we've been receiving from clients, and the fact that some of these clients did not put in place some of these agreements, and they ended up fighting in court and wasting a lot of money. So it is necessary that we come here to conscientize you, to make you aware that even though there is marriage and people who are living together as partners, it's sometimes sensible to have in place some form of agreement. So without wasting my time, I'm going to start with prenuptial agreement. When we say prenuptial agreement, it's normally an agreement that is entered into at least 28 days before the wedding itself. And it's normally lists the assets of both parties who are intending to enter into the marriage and how those assets will be distributed in the event of the breakdown of the relationship. Because as most of you are already familiar, when parties are married, they have the benefit of the Matrimonial Causes Act 1973 in the event of breakdown of the relationship, which is then ended by divorce. And this allows them to distribute their assets in accordance of the law. But there are cases where people may have unequal assets before they enter into the relationship. And some of those assets might have been inherited from parents, or these days there is what they call mom and dad bank. Some people, either the man or the woman, the father might have contributed immensely to mortgage deposit, and they might have even acquired certain assets. They may have shares. They might have even bought their own houses and have owned the house for some time before they enter into the marriage. And sometimes these assets are not per se solely owned by the spouse or whichever party that owns it. Maybe, as I've said, the father might have contributed to the deposit. So if that person wants to protect that asset, then it's important that that person may have to enter into prenuptial agreement with the party that he's seeking to marry. And once that person has entered into the prenuptial agreement, it then allows that person, in the event of the breakdown of the relationship, to assert that this is the agreement we had in place. Therefore, I expect that the court should take it into account. But that notwithstanding, there is a validity requirement. For that prenuptial agreement to be valid, there has to be certain conditions that needs to be satisfied before it will be valid. The first condition normally will require that the parties have entered into it willingly, which means that they should not enter into the prenuptial agreement without coercion. They must also disclose all their assets, which means that if you are seeking to enter into a prenuptial agreement before your marriage, you must disclose all the assets that are in your sole name before you enter into that marriage. And thirdly, that agreement also needs to be witnessed by other parties. You obviously need to also seek legal advice on it, independent legal advice. And then, most importantly, you also need to have entered into it at least 28 days before the actual wedding. So once these conditions have been satisfied, then the court will be obliged to apply its discretion in the event of the breakdown of the relationship, where parties may be seeking that they are entitled to 50% share of the matrimonial asset. So that is about prenuptial agreement.
Okay.
Now, I think it's also important that I have to explain the cohabitation, and then eventually we can then speak to acute language with the who's taking us through the necessary questions. Okay. Now, with regards to cohabitation agreement, as the name implies, it is agreement that is entered into by parties who are not married. These parties may be a man and a woman who are living together in the same household unit. And these parties are in sexual relationship. Now, these two parties may want to enter into cohabitation agreement, which then allows them to be able to distribute their assets fairly in the event of the breakdown of the relationship. So, the cohabitation agreement is normally an agreement which gives certainty of how the relationship and the expenses of the relationship should be run. So, for example, it sets out who should pay what bill in the house, and, for example, if they have a mortgage, who should pay the mortgage, and then who should also pay the household bills. But most importantly, as I said from the beginning, because of the fact that there is no benefit of the Matrimonial Causes Act for those who are in cohabitation relationship or cohabitees, it is quite significant that they put in place these forms of agreement in order to enable them to be able to regulate their relationship. Because, for example, if one of them owns a house in his or her sole name, and the other party has been contributing financially to the payment of the bills in the house, feeding, clothing, and the relationship breaks down, which in fact quite clearly is ostensible that those financial contributions would have enabled the other party who owns the house in his own name to have been able to pay the mortgage freely because of the financial contribution from the other party. But sadly, that party whose name is not on it and who doesn't have the benefit of the Matrimonial Causes Act will not be entitled to anything when the relationship breaks down. And that's why it's important that when people are in a relationship, and more importantly these days, we are seeing a lot of these cases where relationship breaks down and people have not held their houses or their whatever house they are living on trust, And then they have had a lot of issues going to the hard court to fight some of these cases with obviously a lot of costs or legal fees to pay. So it's important that we discuss some of these things today. Now, having said this, I will now give opportunity to the host to take us through the true aspect of this section with all the relevant questions for the benefit of those of you who want to also listen to this in tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Send me the kind na me be say me bisa say say prenuptial agreement and that is as such as
okay, na me pese prenuptial agreement no agreement omo person mo ware no pese me ka so omo person ware because normally no say the word pre nature say
so be ware
a omo tumi satisfy agreement no in place and stand on more worry because for example be on ma me fa na say ma me be excuse me to see be ani kunu wo ja no oja no be dan be me ensa nti sa dan na ye ne dia ani kunu be owu na oja no be akoshia be ma bi o person ne be ma no worry na emra na wo grum ache se so no bi worry a ajapade na wo ni nyina na be mu nyina mo dia nti sa oja ye ba mo be che no be 50-50 nti no sa no ahwa me kokota ko fight sa ansa na bia watumanya more than 50 no even though ajapade ne wo dia. And so yes, a prenuptial agreement na eboama esete right from the start and say na our jaya ba ya be charge apade no. Then am say
e ko basa na che say di pakro ne ba be ware no say bia wo dan mienu a no ma na tie ase say our jaya ba bi dan mienu no ma na e be che ne nka ho.
Sir, wait me I am sir.
Okay, and ye pese e bisa say the effect I want a prenuptial agreement anything.
Yes, said they not make church no. To me boa Emma ubo japade ho ban. Ebu ono ma me bia me nkofo bia omo ba ya kwan mo beka so ono do nware bi because ko ware na japade wa ha no bi de nyansa ko abeje wade. Enti no the chairman says so person ware amenka si bia japade enti no wo nware bi. We prenuptial agreement na even though krum has say you know ya ntro no omre but wo court na say what you match say oh mo be shama aware as say na mo mi no mo te ase. Ite bana sa geje no na what tied in so because okay na sa na mo hyehyɛ dia I didn't know person of fetch you know beje na japade so enti no effect e on say boa o ma wo ba o japade on ban mfa so bu ono ma a friend say the mekan bia na ma me kra boa ma no to dan ibu o kwa na papa e boa na ma no to dan na kese o na japade bibia asa na bi o baba ware be ma no be ma bi o no susu bia na papa ja na bibi ti ono so bi o ware ya bia ware no kwa no bia ni pa ko bi wuru mu no japade nti no bae enti effect o mu se kwa se ma ware no kwa tintim I know it's very controversial but the chairman say we share the benefit of prenuptial agreement and my wife quite to meeting because and break pino nkofo bebre no eto bi o mu ni eto bi o mu fi se bia oh se menya jai koju ana se me jai ama japade we meje me de na me jakobo me bra and this prenuptial agreement is in place koju ana ama be hu se so jai sa dia no bi wo no mo a o nya bibia emfa nkwa apart from ono dia oba ye na wonya no na bi o de beko teno sa na bema sa misconception ya na won ko futi me matam bi o mu jaja aware no kura no etumi ba fo
okay na say sani ya wo ka no e betimi aba say oba ne na we japade ana say be ma ne na we japade I say two parties nyina obi e protecting na japade yes sir
that's right okay did the woman say two parties no obi a won japade obi a be
yes say mri nyina no be ma na say yeah de ya ka ma mri ya na be ma ne wo japade ana sika e chen ma no enti tembia na kopase ya na obi ani akohwe say be ma no na ebia o kire say me protect me japade ho na mo te na wo kire de na say ebia oba no so na we japade ana se be ma no so a yenyina na ye boy japade ho ban
say wo hwe na san kura wo hwe krum ha say atumi say and prep you know in remember o mo krum ha say ya no mo say member e krum ha enye no makọ Ghana no makọ ware bia ba nti bi o ko answer de be ma ba turn it down bi o yes or ni bibia so ebi abema yinsu wona ne ba yinsu so no obedu ha no bia na aware no bia mu wo ba ko ne ade ko ye na aware na kugu na bia wo dan ya wo ta okuta wo no akofa na ba no ba san obeje because there were a lot of cases enye Ghana for Nkwa Zimbabwe last case bia na me yisi ma me no ba office wo susi ma akofa be ma fi Zimbabwe aba wo ye nurse ma tone dan be ma ye jaya no na japade ensususu a ne dan wa ton sususu a ona ne beche because oba ero no so ye adwuma be ma ne ye adwuma otua bills ne ade so and this time no I know it's a topic we said na me can share very controversial ya go be visa bia me man kwanti na yes but ye nua ma no so mu hia sa advice we say na e ma kwa very much more emotional ndi bibisa no wa hwekwa na omokwa ho etumi komu mo san me ma no
say no uti etu e ma nyina afo say ye ko ga ye krom na say ana krobia ye free so ye ko na ye ko fa me ma na ba be ware o ma e yes ye bedra you know be prenuptial agreement no so that at least you know we should be at the best and your man ko ya when him say we japade we dey wa protected it mema no mu free Ghana e bad da o mani tete wo no afi dey ye bebo ye ho ban to munya ye sisi e bi
I was said I was so requirements that here say I say well so obi anim da obi okwa no yare but the only yare meet me akwa so
yeah
and tree you know new venture and to say the obi tumi abi no so what I say in na American say made the fee say prenuptial agreement and boa ma ware mum tintin because nipa kro no so oba na say obi binti na oba and am say agreement ni ti no obi mu say say ni ti na member enya dey am say beka and in the end no nipa kro don't ti na oba no na obenya no so because the oba so oba na be GBP no so oba no bia obi ekuti na be man person oba gia and am say agreement now they are two in place no obi mu say amadi emi ntumi nke no say no ahia omba
na che say see ko fa be man free Ghana pa me de ho na mani o say ne me man kan Ghana say ojam say uba na bedru ne ye nkrata ne wi a ejapade a me wore de wonka ho me japade me protecting na de ye be bobra anya no eno na ye mi enu dia but we de me nko ame dia sa na me man nso e ko ware o Ghana omo nka mama ne ntiase say me japade na me wo ansa na me ne wo be ware no eno se bibi ba ye nche no eno gina nchen ana
yes they all can say that you say the beginning of my kind prenuptial agreement no we mramu no enya de a kruma say no omo ajatu enti no say assuming say we yes agreement na wo pa na wo ba rely on it in court enti bit me ba so bit my agreement no kwa mpo no baby do ro be fise bia enwo hia bia be ma no kwa no wo de ro per ma memfa ma no but the na me can say eboa wo ma wo mu so protective niama so and I dey ba kon so say me ma comfort as dey say na me can profum no enya se wa kofa be ma ni nyina aba no na fa na won be yes agreement no enya adwuma eno ye prenuptial agreement so before be ware be ma no 28 days before be ware no now on no ayesa at least 28 before be ware no which is 1 month before we know now on no ayesa we know so ansa na mako sign ware no enya se one sign ware na we know now on be we mo sign agreement no ansa na into friend say unya lawyer obetime draft sign agreement na no come na wo de amano no so de amano lawyer no we dey achechi ni now I sign now I disclose assets are sana no
okay yeah that's it. Say what are the conditions to be certified for prenuptial agreement to be valid?
Yes. And then I said na we say question ya na me dey church conditions e won ho say ansana e fe say obe enter into the agreement no mo before obe ware no agreement I will enter into ansana wa ware it say at least 1 month 28 days at least 1 month ansana obe ware na wa sign and 2 number 2 condition is so disclose access away na access away na so disclose ni na all the BCA wa na de na nya valid and I say we know so few on monso a so make sure say nipa krono wa mo bi adi ho dance o di dance say see na no so dance ni so na wa sign na said the mechanic so ma on so the man lawyer no confirm say we man legal advice on it about the implications of agreement na obe ware na wa sign na say any ma we na no for condition we ni na to dia na so sign dia na che say aja kujuba na se kuju gidigidi ba na mo kudu kota na o de ate judge na say papa judge ye be ware kuju see na ye kan ye nti me paucho say obede sadi we e be to mra na ho na wa hwe na o de akanse no sa na ya ye no.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Na me pese me bisa say prenuptial agreement no e adwuma wo mrem.
Na me kan o say krum ha si ankasa no de ye nhye da eni ho mra but the tn say family court no nkofo a mo lawyers na mo very very much aware say who could do family court answer na court no judge be make decision no oma mo opportunity ma mo ankasa mo decide say na mo person mo chama japade no so and say mo kwa na say mo ntumi mo ko mediation first mo be ko mediation na ma ko negotiations ni ade and say mo ko sa process ni na wi na say na antiase anya adwuma say mo be tumi ankasa de nyansa aton na ma chama japade a na eno no sa na judge no be compel say sa de a be make decision amam so enti prenuptial agreement the tn say mo tumi asan sa de we na mo de koto judge nanimu a judge no be gas we do ade ni mrem na mo ankasa mo be wara no say na mo kai enti no be fi say nyansa mu no ese me de sa de we ye adwuma enti emprepi no e tumi ye adwuma enti na wo ha celebrities ni ade na mo wa unso bi wo mo jaware a won tehwe because omo no bibiri na so mo japade before me wa no ma science agreement no enti wo no kra na wa adwen so ba be jaware no unim se wa na ba be jai no unya hwe ye wo na wo de ko so enti na eto bia because emprepi no from experience no ansa na nkofo be ka so mu jaware no ebi kwa na omo separate be 2 to 3 years so bi wo kra be 5 years case bia you see the back of parties no master pretty be 7 years also hu oba no kwada so and oba no see how they are jai have two see na they didn't acquire sign ban say ajapade na so mo che no and to which me say emprepi no enya ware dwa no na ya didn't acquire ba ajapade na ewo aware ni mu an che no enam say na mra enna ho no bia nya ntiase from beginning no how on be che sa nyama no eno na eya na ma ntokwa bibri eba enti na me bi ashase me ka say they were very controversial so but they made me feel say na mu bua ma wa anything ena true ena so bua ma tokwa bibri na ya nkofo be gya ore na mo ku gidigidi no ena so be bua ma na so abrafo so because already no before I be kwa start sa tokwa onim say na wa san I think na wa san be ku e be fa kiri ako
ibi ana ni refi
na o yi achire no
eliti send ya woka na che say our jayeba na say sign prenuptial agreement na dia untimi enji mejapade na be ma ne su untimi enji oba no so ejapade.
Yes, well said the American who say I keep on repeating myself again and again. Said the American there so do ko to jeje niwa jeje no but your friend discretion say obi to keep into account but no does no override the matrimonial causes act na am right that hono how ngofu ebija ware a say omocha pade and to beat me about say obey pre-initial agreement no one bi kwa na conditions here discuss yi one yin yi no then take into account ebi wo kwa so na mo yes agreement no but bia mo ware ye no mabenya nkola so And to be a judge because na so for Japadini na nkola bi omo betra ma menche and the omundi den and to be a judge betumi abuafa prenuptial agreement no so now we make it order sir and I'm saying ni brand per se but whereby I'm fans almost say abia obi a would be a wonyinya oba bia ni bia akohia be ma bia ja omienu person mo trampo ni ade na obi a wana ma obi a wana Japan no sa na de ebe den so mbeka say excuse me to say omo emphasize ade no nya adwuma but there are other things that will to me override we it may override fairness say prenuptial agreement which is the law itself.
Okay, yeah, that's it. And you bomodin a protecting and Japade, go for money, men, no be on family down than near Quesiada. That's it, and yeah, twice the doctor and lawyer, you perceive this say cohabitation agreement, and so I say,
yes, cohabitation agreement, and it's different from the prenuptial agreement, but just a mirror of prenuptial agreement. The tenant say no, yeah, available to or more. Excuse me to say, or more. So, we do on a man on it or bad it, and on the bear mat. Or when your margin say, is here. So, but or my margins on my or brabo, and Tino or Brano mobile bono. Ebi a akosua ene kwamenete ebi a cohabitation agreement the balance ebi akosua ne kwame beka say okay sisi a yitu abetena ase aha e ba betren ye ba be hae dan ana say e beto dan ebi a na edan kom kwa akoto no bi a na akosua ye self employed ana say bi a ohwe nkola na ofie ana bia kwame na oye adwuma bia dan na won quantity ana bia kusu anso bia oye niam nketekete ono so na ode tototo bia na ofi ono mo no oye sa niam ni na enti no de ne so mbe agreement say sa cohabitation agreement ya yi me ma kusu ya me na betwetwa efi ya bills no o kwame ona obetwa bia dan ne ka say relationship ne break it down be person a Japadeno be a sad way, a keeping on what they call trust, being a 30%. Because a man just agreement, no, Nancy P. and Fancy, Kusia, a Dinisica in a command or any man now, few no mana, a china, Kwame beer when you're baffled for Nancy, or say a Kusia, and person bet my puma. Now, as an Kusia or Boca, a book, look, I dare make a quite serious. Ena enya bibifo nkwa na ya yom abrofu nyina ya yom ebo okra na omakoto ka ebi aka no be ma no din na register aka no omuni agreement bi in place no bi na wa fa dan no wa fa ka no wa fa bibia so but say almost set up cohabitation agreement na by law no a personal agreement between the two of them ntino and no sir no bet me aka say look say na agreement no intermediate say na woman so the mama nti no so ya de a eboama kwasoabu ni ade no eno so kofo
na say o ka se be ma ne me enko sign cohabitation agreement na o ka se won kwa eno so de ne beba because awu nim say ne ye krum ye supervise party o be ka se jama adwubo ni kwa wo team na wo twe na ko say o me sign this ade na so eno sa no ka se won kwa ede na be
say in fact say if friends you ask we say we be ka say ma bu na me man so bu na yes na lu ba kai entino say bu o na say Jamaica can say we na kwasha bu ntina yes agreement we na what you say and this the park na person na no plan so no can say onye prepare say
aware ya onye na jinso be ware committee ne ho empranchia no person no wetwe
that's right
it is a cohabitation agreement no in be hold here kakra na no so ka say me de me mpelo lo asembia na ope manso ntine bia person yes a I just say no sir no it's say o fa o hwan
and I say so for one
na o hwe ni o mayi me ba
and says so because they eboa mu mienu nyina so instead of make can am prepare me the man example but a bit me to bema e bi won so a bema no bia oba no to ni bibia
yeah the man no ka say yenkosan ye beko
oh yeah sure man be no so mon san
there be o say ye tie na ye betua light bill ye betua say na say but usually say me man ni fie na ye omodia most of the time like mo na ye omodia it is e ko pass e o so okay we there yenko sign form we for future purposes I don't think say man e difficult so be odi e beko at a member no na ya na ya mamre nti yes e basa no adwen ne say adwumboni wo ti ma na wadwen o say obeka say wadwen o say onya wo besisi wana
oh I know the enya member ni quantity because the chairman say minim there are lots of cases here minim some case be and also obano I should need so on na no what no be man na yet more train on also chia sa ni mani na so and since no e ko say e can say has obano no di can to no things will be free but that no so
it's here for yourself mama some minutes e baby ahoma na tom na mo afre enche bia kaka kre bi na ye wie
enti me say said the American man and member but in short no said the bear ye na reach me a boy by na asunpi aba because in English I would say it causes what they call moral hazard because I say in the background if you say if you say we need na so be it maybe to say the time be na go say pulling factor the maybe if you say that we no e den ko for kwa no eba together because ma obi ate na ho ase so because we feel more abrofo ya beto bebre na omoye sa ni ama no enti na obi mbu ni na bi ono yesi be ma na yesi ono so yesi so that sabiu eboa ma sunwie ba ma oda na wo so so watchimi ada akoya se bi ono eno ko bi okwa no fi se enam se nyama we ni wo nti no minimum bi o se o na boy ja because of fi se die echo so we na ya de eboa relationship no teaching nti no me fi se boa me sa na
okay lawyer that say the person ebusane say what is the benefit of cohabitation agreement so far so they say
even say in the course of we be some questions there discuss almost say akanina one certainty the certainty is that it sets out say sisiano kujo bitua say ama bitua say intin samu ofi ono ma bia ama bitua rent and a mortgage kujo bitua a friend say bills any feeding any be including two and also to me ama relationship no obia te no wanse say abana ayebo no say na me no ma contribution say and say na say we contribution say okay. And then the most important point in so say and am says relationship breakdown eba omonware no emremu no woni nyina so bia nti se moye agreement na se motia say bia say na me financial contribution say relationship me break it down bia se car say na ya to a me de meji say and I say dan say a me so me de meji say so nti eno so ya de a eboama kwase oboni ade no so
we de min twa no na se ko ba say ti say ye bedru krom ha na bia ye ni taban nti emrasem mu no ye mpese ye behu emra bia asem nti ye stress ye be kwa fill sa forms na ne be kwa sign no and also there na bitimi aka fa no lawyer
we cohabitation agreement idea
and ya ni usru
and you say usru because a lawyer will be choosing no and then na we seek advice na wa witness na wa sign so obano so based fa the lawyer there no so seek independent advice no so I witness that man and he say excuse me he say we me your lawyer now ba me chain na say bi would be paying the true now see na flow na me ya ma wa say me the din a wa kan che me say me nya ma won and na me de be so and and fa ho nen kata asem ne ade no the most important thing is say ubenya bibisa ade
ato say obi any nkrata na say ope lawyer na say ope so ye we bia eno ane say oba be hu.
Oh yes, say a contract or what is agreement in it's nothing to do with nkrata na say nkrata. So
okay.
Yes.
Inti we so na mremu no adwuma.
Yes, I said there will be able to add now na a contract. Inti so when you be a contract no breachy contract na which me I can say what breachy contract in.
We na I be to say pay as you go no.
Yes, inti we no.
Our pay as you go.
Cohabitation, yeah,
contract pay as you go.
And
you be to me so be man was yes sir.
There be let me making it clear and yet relationship na nka so said a mobile regulatory mobiles and say at the end of the way I said the mobile chain man so and in relationship with the baby but we did said a baby I said yeah well I think the next section be a very well before we go to will now move journey but immortal I will be able well and I dare say we are to and on some just say okay well just so baby so cohabitation agreement and just will be relationship name I dare and so as a backup with that one so Chinana and was more but together because you said now way so China assemble audio bo na bobra why na dwen say fa no because visa dey no na dey bi ani so it me visa bi e boa so na me hu and yet say I dey dividing of way I really bring cohesive factor bringing people together. That's how I see it.
The Thomas said that baby na say baby ahoma na tum no upese wo summarize bibi my ana say upese wo ka bibi na upese dey ya cheche upese wo ka ne brofo baby o wa amoto ye ka ne brofo ma yetifo no etiase.
Yes, I think say I would prefer say who have some English lesson, but before that we ever have a short break in that just say
okay.
Listeners, thank you once again, and thank you for your patience. We are going to open the phone lines very soon in the next 3 minutes for you to call in and then ask your questions. Again, I'm going to summarize what we've been discussing in English for the benefit of those of you who have been patient and been watching us even when we're trying to explain everything in Twi. Now, what I've said today, I must say that this is just a guidance. It is not something that you can rely on exclusively. You may have to seek advice if you want to enter into any form of agreement of that nature. And City Law Solicitor does not take responsibility for so relying on this advice per se, but it's just a guidance. We discussed in Twi and we said that it is important that people either enter into prenuptial agreement before they enter into marriage, especially for older people who have assets and perhaps some could be a widower or a widow who may have inherited asset from the deceased. It's also relevant for those who may have received financial contribution from their parents, mom, dad, bank these days, and have acquired their own houses before entering into marriage. And I said that this prenuptial agreement is not enshrined in law, but the court has discretion to place weight on it if it's entered into it validly. And the way in which it can enter into it validly is one, it should be entered into at least 20 days or a month before your actual wedding. You must also have sought independent legal advice. You should have disclosed all your assets, and then it should also have been witnessed. And once all these conditions are satisfied, the court will be obliged to exercise discretion in the event of the breakdown of the relationship. So I said that this, in fact, cures this can-come or this moral hazard where people out of misconception feel that, oh, if I leave my marriage, I have all this gain, and serves to pull people apart. In my view, prenuptial agreement rather brings people together, because right from the onset, people are aware what they will be entitled to in the event of the breakdown of the relationship. And the fact that it's the personal agreement that they have entered into voluntarily, it helps to stabilize the relationship. And I said that it is important that people consider this. But apart from that, it's also significant to point out that where certain things have changed, for example, you enter into a relationship, there are children, things have changed, the court might not go solely by the prenuptial agreement because they may take other factors into account, which, for example, they will look at the Matrimonial Causes Act of 1973. I also looked at the Cohabitation Agreement. I said that it's an agreement that people enter into, people who are not married. So in a relationship which is akin to marriage, but not marriage itself, sometimes it's important to also enter into what we call Cohabitation Agreement. And this Cohabitation Agreement, again, helps people to be able to regulate their expenditure in the course of the relationship. And in the event of the breakdown of the relationship, it also sets out how those assets that have been acquired in the course of the relationship will be distributed. So it is important that people who are not married, they can have this mirror agreement of prenuptial agreement, which is Cohabitation Agreement, in place. And my personal view is that it helps to stabilize relationship, because right from the onset, people will be aware what they may be entitled to in the event that they want to leave the relationship. And for those of you who may be making financial contribution in a relationship where, for example, the asset is held in the sole name of just one of the parties. For example, you have a mortgage which is in the sole name of the woman or the man, and one of the parties is making financial contribution by paying for bills, feeding, and clothing and all that. When the relationship breaks down, in the absence of cohabitation agreement, that person might not be entitled to anything. Or where cars have been acquired in the sole name of the other person, the other party may not get anything. So it is important that people consider this cohabitation agreement when they are in a relationship akin to marriage, which will help to stabilize the relationship. So this is what we discussed today. We are going to open the phone lines. If you want to, I'm sure the host will put the phone lines across. You can call both the mobile and then WhatsApp. So if you can, please.
Okay. Thomas said, I see the so when you're in watch yes, you know, be a phone lines not on. And telephone number free abroad is 0044 793 293 4518. Betnenya is WhatsApp and our normal phone line 079 329 34518. It's for lines na ye bia to nti betimi afre.
Okay, we can go for a short break.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Good evening.
Mami dum volume, no. Mami dum volume.
Me patri.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi.
Me patri Bowdina can adikronti awo freche.
Me say the Mr. Peter. Me name Mr. Thomas. Ye down for brebo pa. Obi ka brebo a odo ti ase.
Me patri me.
Brebo to me ka brebo ntem.
Ba ko nko nya ba ko.
I sent tabai. Me want tabai. Me want tabai and come to my call. Don't say, Mr. Thomas. Oh, bro, me no wa. You be you say gaten
Me
my brother. Oh, you been there, papa. Mr. No say me.
Mate.
Thomas, yamin show them why. Yamin mau. Nim dear wisdom. Nim dear knowledge.
Amen.
Na Bible mo can Bible from Genesis to Revelation and say the fear of God is the beginning of what? Knowledge. Wisdom. Onipa biara o nyansa a o ti wi ase mo no obi ntumi sese no. Ani ka ze mi ncho odo ni anom Ghana for no. We are a coalition of black solicitors living here in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
It is a cosmopolitan society mix of different races, different societies, different cultures, different practices. And it sometimes malfunction. Or because of malfunction out there, or no, malfunction. I just go. I think that's been show. Thomas or a minia, because is blood, to the muja. Na Bible no, only the king enter the Kuben wape mu akasmaking kan Kubenana ashe. Mamen can't say me Joe.
Okay, me too.
Sabi, the book the Sabi Bible a book.
Yeah.
Now book no. And try the woman and try to me read out here. Say there's a story in the Bible of one man called Joseph. This man, he was living in one land. Me papa was in the animal. And in the animal, I want to do a bone. I want to do tokro. Yeah. That man say, "Oh no, Joseph no. Oh no, go to tokro. Na abuanya day. Enche na ni moja no." Abuani mojano obi di gu na pare a tunic of many colors obika color out there say Nigeria say America no ma brofo photo kasa na eka no
yeah
a tunic of many colors say we are for many different colors, different creed, different nationality. We all come together as one. We are practicing as a one unique peoples, because it's not a single one dimension. We are looking in both aspects. Family, you know what I'm saying? So now, friends of what? It doesn't really matter what, it can go on and on, but I love to be a part of this society, a society of one creed. A nation of black solicitors. I want to work with you. I am respectful of what you are doing. You've come a long way. I will never neglect me. I love you. You are my brother. Fine. No. Men can't go to them. Men can't go to them. Men no more. Men can't go to them. Although, fine. Now men can say, "Oh, we are a nation of one people. Together we stand." COVID by. Because see me can say. Approaching the cofa near the wall, Ampine. Ampine or no area woman. It will come into a unique human species where they will start to cultivate the disease among the human species. Ono abuano ne genome, no genetic genome sequence and fine. No, I don't want DNA, but any human DNA, but it's transverse, it crossed over the barrier and came into a human species, a genetic COVID-19. About 2019, and a chinipa, in body a long time, but nipa does any day channel and say 2019.
Wadaroma, etiefo ni bi wa eche ti ka beti mi aye ni ti.
Aye komo. Ghana Telecom, my brother, see, aye komo.
Me ti ase in kofo bebre online eche omo so pesa omo friend ti ka kasa kakra no am obi nso afre bi wadaroma. Aye
me try line so bad nche.
I do understand you, but you are like your friend.
My brother, no, make us know. Make it online, this is my bench, the Biarada.
Yes, make it online. For so friend here, show.
I am come conversation.
No one, Casa.
Dabi Nabotre. Take it easy, son. Take it easy. I said, I may catch a one and say, hey, Diva Blue.
Yes.
It's a conversation like a smooth flowing rhythm. It never ends. It goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, me pass out and say, "Ma will be to say 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and 5 minutes. No be a kasaka no corner will be sweating me at the castle because we are dealing with time."
I miss make sure my drain. Miss make sure my drain.
It's time. And so who here you are
there?
Me patch. Me patch.
Miss make sure my drain to show say I am part of the rhythm.
Me patch you.
Okay.
Why you want to go along spraying rhymes over the bars when purpose want to flow?
Peter,
go along with the flow.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Simon, friends, Benyon.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much.
Benyon. In common, I'm saying, let's go along. I'm loving the flow. I'm loving the rhyme.
Thank you.
Spraying rhymes over the bar. You know what I'm saying? Spraying rhymes over the bar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My brother.
Peter, that's a brace our friend. For a move to me after Peter, or very familiar with Mr. Thomas Saint in our Hello. Hi. Me
Hello.
Me pacho didn't share next time the 20-hour friend.
Oh, you're from Nana, but there are person me can and the Mokai, and it's okay. The same busa lawyer, some cacra.
Me pacho you. A find out.
Medasa mammy. Lawyer Pacho and Pesami busa say are you for no more free mono. Mean you have a question of Ghana and an edofuno elbow. Germany into kita Deutschland homa ana opesa odiko wire na be room na mpacho me find out say law na asesa no sen rules na sen requirements no sen be patrol.
Okay. The chairman said one can
the patrol me dey to so na waka say be obi so betimi room
you
me da say
yes Medawasi. The chairman said the one cancer worker if December 2020 no. Mama will be acquires up to June 30th 2021 omonya applications nanka omutumi the omo spouse said they won't need aba and to do that not just say relationship no a marriage as stay before December 2020 no 31st December 2020 no. Now say me two question na say omo anya application probably ni be afa na omo kwa akọware na say afa na omo kwa akọware ya because so ye EU no e bia na wa ye pre-settled status no and with the EU passport no kuta no also ye Dutch no so ye pre-settled status no not just say she will still be able to do the application or the nikunu no aba. But then when you be sukrum ha emerano, which means so show say or ye jumana or just 18,600 per annum no. So show say the bakono then barwa ko yes English no A1 test no. And so show so or dia or ba or betnam. And basically no sa nkofo no omo ye EU for na omo ye pre-settled status no. And also omo kuta indefinite leave to remain under the EU settlement scheme no. Omo can now make application under what they call Appendix FM, which is criminal immigration rules no. And they are no. But say I do omo worry long before December 2020 no. Now some people say omo application I think say entry clearance and say open even Chrome has said you say have to give reasons why I want to me and before 30th June 2021 and acquire be on more still no bit me an application but if say we hear for that advice obit me lawyer and answer friends e be ma for that advice on it why
okay lawyer that's it Minya ba so lawyer number na se ne ocheche mu no one tiase a ochena ana at your own convenient time we betimi afre no no wa cheche mu ahye tie for that so I train mu se mo be frɛ se bibi chi echi obi adwene a betimi afre na ya cheche mu ahye mu until lawyer Thomas na say your friend is saying Cohabitation Agreement no I think say no me prefer not than prenuptial agreement. What do you say?
I think that there are two different ways.
It's a yeah what be
our for more person more worry and about for more or more person more worry. So
yeah, you grow with the our area the man ye pay. Say then now the be matina be man yes or be wayo.
And so but say say kuma so ko fu be pretty o mo worry.
Yeah, the man no my more than the mo person be wayo. Ma de power you. Who can't say be wayo pay, be wayo. I say be man ye na ho say me nye ready na new man to 2 year. They say and no eboa.
But minimum behavior or say because someone is dining in Bibia no Bema no pen so ni Sanya mana on Wareno. Intina no sa be a cohabitation agreement
and no bebo. I said you will bet me a worry. Now I hear prenuptial agreement.
Then Tina Yedi we Minu na bit me abuado.
We babuado. It is a prenuptial agreement in 28 days as an albe worry. Now I hear what dear. Nafi wa worry ti be man ba nyafi no be fa obi already no protective properties dada what I say it's a basa dia I just say pensu be any
okay I think
so
go for a short break
and was I train was some be free ti ye train e be ko break kakra na asan ababi
we had few calls, but I think that now we're in a situation.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, lawyer. Me and my friend first one, but man get to be clear. And bra, my friend lawyer be. Na me busa no the same question no. Ni explanation man tell lawyer the okay admit as ye dia. They say na so mu meet 18,000 requirements na nya sa.
Says na there so mo worry e kwa there. Na funa mo ko worry.
Now what of say Oma worry before me fan say Oma worry I am marriage set na to na the date marriage set na here. Let's say somewhere 2020.
Yes, as I understand, so 2020, before December 2020, there, entry clearance is still open. And under the scheme, so one reasons here, 1 year before, but say about 1 year.
Okay. It is a phenomenal bear there, and they have to prove, say, they really have to prove, say, or ye drama any 18,000 or baby or
18,600, that's right. Because they say I also have more pre-settled status, definitely leave to remain on my EU phone. More time on my application, but under the appendix FM, which is criminal immigration rules, requires say we should say the corner down obey English test. Now, also 18,600 or more. And or dying so all those conditions. So that only took place after December 2020.
Okay. Okay. Mate papa, me that's it, my friend.
Yeah, that's so afraid.
Okay.
Bye. Mr. Thomas, I think say callers now it be ember be not just say the program no everybody every year. Ti that was the same one ya bre and so Thomas, thank you very much for coming today. It will be my first time catch with you for now.
Yes, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. This program would have been a success without you guys either calling in and watching and listening to these programs. I know that it was quite a controversial topic, but obviously it is something that helps to really stabilize relationship. And it's an area that most people don't normally explore it, but it helps a lot. And I'm saying that if for whatever reason you have concerns about the relationship and you want to enter into such agreements, you can seek a proper advice on it. If you don't have a lawyer or a solicitor and then you want somebody any lawyer to assist you, City Law Solicitors, we are there to assist those who don't have a lawyer and then they want us to assist them in drafting some of these agreements so they can have these agreements in place before they either enter their marriage or to start their cohabitation agreement or relationship which is akin to marriage. I must say that apart from having this discussion under the family law, we also practice immensely in immigration, and we do all kinds of areas under the immigration law. We practice in personal injury and clinical negligence. We do some forms of housing. Obviously, we also deal with a lot of cases under the employment law, and then civil litigation and commercial dispute. So if for whatever reason you have any legal matter in any of these areas and you don't have a lawyer, you can always contact City Law Solicitors. Our contact details is on the screen. You can always contact us and we'll be very much willing and able to support you. Thank you very much for watching us tonight. God bless you.
We thank God for today.